Hi everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my nerdy weekly roundup of what I've been watching. So, right, starting with She-Hulk. I really don't know where this show's going and what it's about. There doesn't really seem to be any kind of plot per se, and the problem is that I guess because she was so perfect at being the Hulk in episode 1, there's no real story arc to go anywhere with her being the Hulk because she's perfect at it from straight out the gate. So I don't think it's meant to be more, a lawyer show. So each week it's a different case and they don't necessarily connect. I really don't know. It's just, I mean, we do carry on the story from last week in terms of her defending Emil Blonsky, the Abomination, and obviously it sort of ended with that he'd escaped, but then he'd come back. And he's supposed to be having his parole hearing. And obviously, given the fact that he's escaped, that kind of puts the kibosh on the parole hearing. But then we sort of find out that Wong's been involved, Sorcerer Supreme from obviously Doctor Strange, and they bring him into this episode. First of all, he sort of turns up at the practice, and basically her paralegal has sort of tracked down Wong through his social media, because obviously the Sorcerer Supreme would have a social media presence. I mean, I don't know. It's just bonkers. It's supposed to be like, superheroes, top secret. Nobody knows who you are or your identities. But yeah, he's all over social medias. So yay for Wong. So they basically bring him in, and he says that actually he's the one that forced Emil or the Abomination to leave, and that's the footage that we saw. It's the underground Chinese fighting ring, which is actually, I think, what we saw in Shang-Chi, the club that he went to find his sister. So Wong basically says it's all my fault. There's a really important reason, which he doesn't explain, that he broke out the Abomination. He offered to give him sanctuary, but he was insistent on coming back and serving his time and seeing out his sentence. So Wong returns him, and Jennifer's, oh, that's great. She-Hulk, oh, that's great. Like, I need you to come to his parole hearing and say this. And he's like, yeah, I will. The thing, with Wong, I don't know. He's always been a fun character. He's always been a little bit the butt of the jokes of Doctor Strange, not in a nasty way, in the original Doctor Strange where he's the librarian and Strange is sort of taking the books behind Wong's back and things like that. So it's always very light-hearted. It was never sort of a personal attack on Wong. But every time they seem to roll him out now, especially in this show, his IQ just seems to drop by 10 points every time they wheel him out. And he's just a bit of he's supposed to be the Sorcerer Supreme, but he's just a bit of I don't know. I don't want to say an idiot. I think that's too strong, but he's just played down. It's just a bit of he's nothing really special. He's not important. And he's just a bit of a joke, a bit of a bumbling guy kind of thing, which is a real shame because the character started off really well, but as we see with all the male characters in the MCU now, that they're all just a bit of a joke. So I don't know. Anyway, he agrees to testify. We have the parole hearing, and alongside this storyline, we've got the storyline of one of her ex-colleagues. So the toxic token cis male colleague we saw in the first episode that was always putting her down has been catfished by I think an elfin shapeshifter from Asgard or New Asgard, pretending to be some online influencer that nobody's ever heard of. What was her name? Megan Thee Stallion. Who knows? I'm just probably out of touch and old, but that's fine. So he's seeing his lawyer. He's taken the woman, the elf woman who's in person to court for damages. So we've got this storyline running, and the elf. So he goes to see his lawyer. He says, "I want as much money as you can get." Blah blah blah. Walks out. Then he walks back in and says, "Oh, I've changed my mind. No, it's all just an honest mistake." And obviously it's the shapeshifter pretending to be him. And then the guy phones, so he's lawyer. So he's talking to him on the phone, but he's got him standing in front of him, so he knows it's her pretending. And then we have the same repetition. So it goes in front of a judge to say whether he can go to court. The judge rules that yes, there's a case here, but it's on the onus of the prosecution to prove that there is a case, or that he's been damaged. And he walks out, and then the judge walks straight back in again and say, hey, I've changed my mind, blah blah blah, completely different personality. And again, everybody's like, well, that's you. You can't impersonate a judge. And she just turns back and it's all, hey, hilarious. So anyway, that's going to court. There's a scene in a bar with the lawyer talking to Jen and her paralegal, because they used to work together, and they're basically saying, what an idiot this guy is, misogynist he is, he thinks he's God's gift to women. So he basically sort of said, oh, will you testify to that? And she's like, yeah. So she agrees to do that because she hates this guy and whatever. Then we've got the back to the sort of parole hearing. Wong's late, he's not turned up, so she's calling other people to the stand, and there's all these people like a prison guard and other people saying what a great guy the Abomination is now, and how he's helped them, and he's basically like the prison counselor or something, who knows. Even though he's locked away in a top secret part of the prison, somehow he can interact with all the prisoners. I don't know. Anyway, so we kind of get this whole, middle-aged white male parole off, on the board, saying, well, I don't think we even need to hear from anybody because he's escaped from prison. It's a slam dunk, he's not. And she's sort of convinced, and then the woman on the panel pips up and says, oh no, I want to hear what's blah blah blah. So then we start going through her witnesses, and she's basically stalling for time until Wong can turn up. Then he sling rings it into the parole hearing, gives his statement. Then, of course, he basically says that he broke him out, and he drops himself in it because obviously that's a federal offence, and now he's in trouble. And Jen didn't think to mention this as a lawyer, that, by giving this testimony, you do realise that you kind of, dropping yourself in it and you could be arrested for breaking a law. No, she forgot to mention that. So anyway, Wong just sort of goes, oh, hey, look that way. And out he goes with his sling ring. But the upshot of that is that and there's a scene while they're waiting for him to get there that basically Tim Roth turns into the Abomination, turns back again, basically proves he's got it all under control. So they basically agree parole, and that's kind of that storyline. After that, Jen's walking home or to a car or something, and a group of men who have stolen Asgardian power tools attack Jen, because they're sort of doing this whole, oh, look at you strutting around, showing off, showing your powers. And she's like, when have I done that? So it's kind of a bit of a play on, you're dressed, as a woman, if you're walking down the street dressed a certain way, you're asking for it kind of dialogue. So it actually wasn't too bad. I kind of do relate to that a little bit, but a bit like everything else, is a little bit on the nose. So anyway, she turns into the Hulk, and obviously fights them off. And they all get away and get in a van, and it basically looks like one of them, they've been hired to try and get some of her blood, but they couldn't obviously get the syringe through her skin once she changed into the Hulk. So there's obviously some sort of storyline brewing there, which will be a first, because we might actually have a storyline coming in, which would be great. Then we kind of go back to the trial, and sort of Jen comes in as Jen and basically just testifies, because basically everybody's saying he's just, he must have known he was being catfished, and he's just after money. How could he not know? So Jen just basically gives this burn testimony that, the guy's an asshole. He says he's a New York 10 but an LA 11. He thinks he's God's gift, and every woman he meets with a pulse which would just fall at his feet. So he's not dumb. He's just so arrogant that he wouldn't believe for a second that he'd be catfished. And her testimony basically wins the case, and he's a bit like, oh, so you're letting her insult me, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, it's sort of won you the case, hasn't it, kind of thing. And that's basically the episode. So again, I mean, they're really short, 20 minutes. We don't really see where it's going. So we've got this one hint at someone trying to get her blood. There's still lots of eye-rolling, cringy moments where it's just too on the nose. And it's supposed to be a comedy, and it's just not funny. I mean, I haven't laughed at it once. I mean, I'm not even smiled at anything, kind of going, It's just, I just don't know why they think it's funny, or to a bunch of whoever wrote it, just, saying all men are assholes and Just, idiots. That's hilarious. I don't know, really don't know. So anyway, yeah, and then I think most people know there's that twerking scene, end credit scene, that she's twerking because she's taking Megan the Stallion, the real one, on as a client. Who knows why? She doesn't appear to be any trouble, and she's supposed to be defending superheroes. So I don't know why she's signing up a client. I imagine it'd be a different division, but hey, that's so they can have a "you go girl power" twerking dance in the office. Massively inappropriate, I would say. And to be honest, I think, as I said, the show is meant to be a comedy, and if it was actually funny, if you then had the twerking scene, it'd just be a bit of sort of light sort of humor. It would kind of work, but because the show's just not funny in any way, shape, or form, then you just kind of got this cringy kind of twerking scene at the end. You're just like, okay, thanks. Yeah. It's not, it's they've certainly dialed down the cringe from the last 2 episodes, but it's still definitely in there and eye rolling. And like, so my biggest complaint is this: where's it going? What is the story arc? That there's nothing really to sort of keep any momentum going in this show. But anyway, I will keep watching it and letting you know what's going on. Thankfully, it's only 20 minutes of my life. If it was any longer, I'm not sure I could stick with it. It just really needs to step up and actually just have some kind of story arc to try and keep people interested. I completely get why this is probably. I think ironically, it's not the worst of the Marvel shows, but I kind of guess what I can see why it's the lowest rated, because there's just nothing to keep you interested from week to week. So that was She-Hulk. Help me, please. We're only a quarter of the way through. There's 9 episodes of this. Hey ho. So on to House of the Dragon. So we're on episode 2. As I said last week, I actually quite liked it, even though it had some pacing issues. Pleased to report I enjoyed episode 2 as well. I don't think they completely sorted out the pacing issues, but this was definitely better paced. And the episode actually felt like it went quite quickly in a good way. They've moved the story along. We've jumped 6 months ahead from the previous episode. Obviously, the king losing his wife and son. So he's kind of had his grieving period. So very much the storyline, sort of two arcs in this episode. So the main one is that, obviously in those times, in the evil times, say 6 months is plenty of time to grieve. And it's all about, right, you're the king, you've got a duty, you've got to find a new wife. He's obviously really struggling with this because he was fortunate with his first wife to marry for love. And he clearly loved her very, very much. So as much as he knows he's got duty, he's kind of struggling with the thought of having to remarry. He speaks to his daughter about this, and obviously sort of says, look, I'm a king, I've got a duty, I've got to look after the realm. And she basically says, yeah, I know, you've got to get remarried. And she kind of like, I know, I support you in this. And it kind of gives him her blessing, which was really nice. But that doesn't last for long. So with all this going on, one of his main sort of consults, and I think they're cousins through some sort of marriage, Lord Valerian suggests that the king marry his daughter, which at face, because it would bring the houses together. He has all the trade routes and big sort of shipping thing. And politically, it would make an alliance and it all makes sense. The problem is his daughter's 12. So again, for those times, that was not unusual at all to have 11, 12, 13-year-old girls married off to much older men. And by much older, I mean like 40, 50-year-old men. That was quite common practice. Needless to say, the king is actually quite uncomfortable with this. And there's a meeting and they go for a walk. And, the girl is does look very, very young. And I think what was good the way they've done it is he does look genuinely uncomfortable, walking with her, and she's been given a speech, and the sort of the bit at the end, like, do you understand what this means? And she's like, oh, well, my mother sort of said, I'll make you an excellent queen. I will provide you with heirs. But my mother's told me I won't have to basically bed you or sleep with you for 2 years until she's 14. And he's sort of like, okay. So he sort of goes away and sort of thinks about this. Obviously, in the first episode, we saw Otto Hightower sending his daughter to the king to sort of give him comfort, which is, a clear maneuver to try and, I think, the daughter to catch the king's eye. They've sort of struck up a kind of a friendship, really. And I think she does sort of provide him a comfort and a counsel, really, because obviously she talks about losing her mother, so she can sort of give a view from that point of view. And their friendship seems to be sort of blossoming a bit. And we sort of see that. So I think that, he's kind of like, do I do what's best for the realm, or do I do what's best for me? And, and he's given that, great thought, because obviously making the wrong decisions could start wars back then. The other main storyline is good old Damon, Matt Smith. He's obviously been banished back to his kingdom for his comments in the first episode. He's then sent a telegraph to the king saying, as per ancient rules, he's taking a second wife, because we made it very, very clear he doesn't like his wife and doesn't have any time for his wife. He's basically marrying his mistress, and he's saying that she's pregnant and they're going to get married. And you find out he's stolen one of the dragon's eggs. And initially the king's annoyed, because it's part of their tradition. The Targaryen tradition is that a dragon's egg is placed in the cot with the baby. And then his daughter, who's there, sort of pushes and says, well, which dragon egg did he take? And it transpires that basically he's stolen the same egg that was actually the king's heir's son who lived for days egg. So he's sort of really sort of firing a shot across the bow. At this, the king flips and he's basically, right, we're going to go get the egg back. And Otto says, no, you can't go. It's too dangerous for you. You have to be here. You have to, get killed. I will go with some troops and we'll go get the egg back and basically slap him back in his place. So off they go, and they go to Damon's castle, and he kind of meets them on the bridge, and there's lots of standoff and lots of words between Otto and Damon. And again, as soon as Matt's on the screen, it's just brilliant, and he's just really setting out his story as a character. And basically, we get to the point, there's a standoff and all the swords are drawn, and it looks like it's going to, end up in a fight. And then it's bridge, and it's all kind of misty, and it's sort of clouds, and you see sort of something coming through the clouds, and a dragon sweeps up, and it's basically the princess. She's flown there, as it transpires against her father's wish. She hasn't even told anybody, but it kind of makes sense that she's gone. We know she's got this close relationship. We're not quite sure how close relationship with her uncle, but she's pretty sure he won't hurt her. So she kind of gets there and sort of talks him down and gets the egg back. And there's a good exchange with Damon and his niece. And that kind of smooths things over initially. And then we also find out that Damon was lying about his soon-to-be bride being pregnant. That wasn't true. And then we go back, and then obviously the king has a go at the princess for going against his wishes, and she shouldn't have gone, but actually she sort of stands up for herself and says, well, I diffused the situation. It was a good outcome, which, the king doesn't disagree with, but, she has to do what she's told, and, she's a princess at the end of the day, and he's only heir. And that's what he was annoyed about, is that she's his only heir at this point, and she has to think about her safety as well. And then following on from that, there's a meeting at sort of the King's Council, and he announces that he's given thought to who he should marry. He is going to take another queen, but then he drops the bombshell that he's going to marry Otto's daughter, Alison Hightower, rather than Lord Valerian's daughter. So from a political point of view, he's just lobbed a grenade in that he's basically setting himself up for people coming after him. Lord Valerian obviously is not happy at all. And actually this upsets the princess, because Alicent's kind of like her best friend, and I don't, as much as she gave her father permission to remarry, she didn't think it was going to be her best friend. He was obviously her age as well, so she storms off. She's hurt by this decision. Obviously Otto's made up, his daughter's going to be, you know, queen. And that's kind of and on the very end, then we basically got Daemon and Lord Valerian discussing an alliance to basically kind of bring down the king. One of the key bits at the start of the episode I forgot to mention is that in the shipping routes there's a new player, and the ships are being attacked, and they're being sort of the men from the ships are being strung up and eaten by crabs. It's quite gross. But basically, obviously, Valerian's saying that you know, we've got to do something about this. We have to have a show of power, and the king wasn't really understands something needs to be done, but doesn't want to start an all-out war. He's trying to do something a bit more diplomatic. But basically, at the end, so Daemon and he's basically saying that they're going to, you know, they need to take down the king, basically, or they need to make a first strike against this other player and make the king look bad. So it's building quite nicely. I think we're building up to, and looking at the trailers for this week's episode, that we're really going to start getting some action and some fighting, which would be great. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. As I said, I've got no baggage from Game of Thrones because I've not watched it. I'm very much optimistic at the moment. It does seem to be playing out quite well. I mean, obviously we've heard the news that the showrunner has left for season 1. Well, out of the 2 showrunners, one of them has left. And that just leaves the other showrunner. I think for such a big program, having one showrunner is a big workload. And hopefully that won't have any impact on season 2, assuming the quality remains in season 1. I guess we'll have to see where that goes. But yeah, so far I'm still recommending House of the Dragon. Great acting still. I mean, the writing, the dialogue, and some of the CGI in this was great, especially Daemon's castle and the dragon. So yeah, still very much enjoying and looking forward to. It'll be Monday for us. This Monday's episode, it comes up. I watch it on Now TV, so it's on a Monday, sort of first thing. So yeah, House of the Dragon. What else are we watching this week? Samaritan. I did talk about this on Wednesday's show on Facebook with Dan and the guys. Sylvester Stallone is film on Prime Original. It's sort of more gritty, down to earth, sort of superhero-ish, or superpower, I guess, rather than superhero character. It sets up that 25 years ago you had the Samaritan and his nemesis called Nemesis were doing battle, and they were twins brought up together, and they were kind of sort of ostracized a bit and excluded, and sort of one chose to go down the path of good, and one sort of, I think, I don't know the path of bad per se, but was more angry at the world, and then he got angry at his brother, and there was a sort of standoff, and then there's a massive fire, and they're both suspected to have been killed in the fire, both brothers. And then it kicks off with a little boy who's a huge fan of the Samaritan and this mythos of him. And over a series of events, he's convinced that one of his neighbors is actually Samaritan. He has all these burn scars on his back, and he sees him do a few things, and he's basically kind of bugging the guy and trying to find out if he is Samaritan or not. And it's like, he's in a poor area of the city. His mum looks like a nurse or auxiliary at a hospital, so she's working all the hours. It's just him and his mum. She sort of says she gets paid on the 5th of the month, rent's due on the 1st of the month. So pretty much every month they're sort of threatening, they lock them out of the apartment and threaten to evict them, even though she pays her rent every month, but it's always a few days late. So the kid kind of gets drawn into, there's some gangs, and basically he can make some quick money to help his mum if they help him rob a convenience store. Well, basically they want the lotto ticket, so he goes in and sort of falls over, and while the guy behind the counter comes out to sort of see he's okay, they go in, nick the boxes of the lottery tickets, and they all flee. And this kind of introduces the antagonist, who has basically grown up idolizing Nemesis and wants to recreate or bring back sort of Nemesis's plan and take down the city and all these kind of things. So the kid's kind of getting tied up in that. And when they open the lotto boxes, it turns out it doesn't have any lotto tickets in it. It's just crisps or something. And one of the gang members tries to blame the kid, and the kid sticks up for himself. But he's basically not a grass, and he sort of respects that and gives the kid some money. But the other guy takes umbrage to this, and this kind of plays out that him and his gang mates, tried to beat up the boy, and then the Sylvester Stallone's character sort of sees this, and he helps him out and sort of knocks him into next week. And that kid's like, I knew you're a Samaritan, and he goes, I'm not. And then a little bit further along, they go after him for helping the kid, and they run him over, and the kid sees it. And then basically all his bones sort of snap back into position. And he's like, yeah, I knew it. And he goes back to the apartment with him. And he basically sort of says he runs hot. So he just basically has a whole fridge full of ice cream. He's just eating ice cream. So this kind of goes along to a sort of climax of, the bad guys are kind of doing a mini purge and want to blow up the power station and take control. The kid's sort of saying that this guy's Samaritan. So the guy who idolizes Nemesis wants to kill Samaritan, and basically kidnaps the boy and beats up his mum, and he finds the mum and says, he's taken him. So he then goes to the power station to rescue the boy. And there's some lots of beating up the gang. And at one point he takes like a sort of grenade and shoves it into one of the guy's stomachs and sets it off and walks away. And cracking typical 80s one line, like have a blast or something. So it's quite like fight scenes, and there's a twist at the end as to who Samaritan actually is. I'll let you watch it, find it out. It's okay. I mean, it's very much harks back to sort of 80s action films, sort of gritty action films. I think like a lot of things these days, it's not 100% clear really who it's made for. There's a bit of swearing in this, and it can be quite violent in places. So I wouldn't say it's a young family film, probably sort of older, sort of 13, 14, 15-year-olds upwards maybe, if you don't mind a little bit of language. I mean, it's not, it's not all the way through, but I think there's a few F-bombs in there. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's like good Sunday afternoon, popcorn, switch your brain off, couple of hours, film. I know some people like the guys really enjoyed it. Dan and Matt really enjoyed it. I say I've watched it once. I probably wouldn't watch it again, but yeah, I think it's a perfectly good bit of old-fashioned action film. You know what you're getting with Stallone type thing. And I think what's good is like he very much plays roles now. He plays his age. He's not trying to be somebody 40 years younger. He's really writing and taking roles that suit the age that he is now. He's very good in it. Does what Stallone does. So I think definitely check it out. It's not the greatest film ever made, but it's okay. It's good. Like I say, entertaining if you like your sort of action films, especially if you liked your 80s action films. I'd definitely say check out Samaritan. I think that's about it for this week in terms of what I've been watching. As I said last week, I haven't watched Lord of the Rings. I've seen the reviews coming in, and ouch. I mean, gosh, I think for all the media, we're all geared up for the excuses of everybody being racist, and the one character everybody can't stand is Galadriel. Who's obviously a white woman, so I guess they just have to go with sexist instead of racist. That she's a Mary Sue and a Karen, which is a major achievement. So I think if I was sort of on the fence about watching this show, from the reviews, I mean this comment of Mary Sue and Karen came from Grace Randolph of all people. If Grace is saying this, I really have no interest in watching it at all. As I said, I'm not a massive Lord of the Rings fan. If you guys want me to review it, I will. but please don't make me. But I'm not, I mean, I can jump on the bandwagon right now, and I'm sure it would really help promote the channel. But I try and be as authentic as possible, and watch things that I hope to enjoy watching. Like, say, Lord of the Rings is just really not in my wheelhouse. Same as like Witcher. I tried to watch Witcher. I think I got 2 episodes in, and I just couldn't click with the show. So if you really want to review it, I'm more than happy to take a look. But what I might do is like wait till the end of the season and just give you an overall view. But yeah, I think kind of all our fears of what it would be does seem to be playing out. If anything, I think the character most people were wary of, which was Disa, because of the actress and the nonsense that she was saying. Apparently, actually, she was actually very good, or certainly her dialogue was better than most, and her character worked well. So, fair play. The biggest complaint is the lady that plays Galadriel, and her character, who's just obnoxious and unlikable, like every female lead we tend to see these days. So, glad I swear that curveball. So one bit of news that did come up this week, which I'm really excited about, is a trailer for Manifest. I mentioned it the other week that I was hoping to get a release date soon, and so the flight in Manifest is flight 828, and we tend to get news on the 28th of August. Which doesn't, so and we did, so we got a trailer for part 1 of season 4. For those who don't know, Manifest was on, I think it was ABC in America, one of the networks, and season 1 to 3 was on there, and unfortunately it got cancelled. But it got cancelled really due to the cost of making the show, not that it wasn't doing good ratings. So a lot of people were really surprised when it did get cancelled, because it was doing really well. And not long after the cancellation notice, it had been picked up, or Netflix was showing it in the US and in some European countries as well. Over here, it's on Sky for us. So, and season 1 to 3 is still on Sky. And because it was just doing so outstandingly on Netflix, it was just in the top 10 for weeks and weeks and weeks. I think it went to number 1 at one point, that they actually said, look, we'll pick it up and make the sort of, originally Jeff Rake, the writer, kind of had a 5 to 6 season story arc for this. Netflix said, look, we'll pick it up for 1 extended season. So we're kind of always getting a 4.5 season to round out the story on Netflix. And that is due to drop on November 4th. For anybody who doesn't know anything about Manifest, if anybody's been watching this channel, I love From and La Brea. I said I love this. I'm just stuck with this kind of supernatural mystery box type stuff. And this was one where a flight takes off from the Caribbean, flight 828, and it's going back to New York. And there's a family there who are on vacation, and they're due to come back, and there's a mix up on the flights, and the flights overbooked. So like sort of half the family go on one flight, half of the family go on 828. The first flight takes off, and that's and off they go. And then there's some delays because of weather, but eventually they take off, and there's some turbulence, and it's quite a bumpy flight. But they eventually land. But when they land, the plane is surrounded by government and police officials, and they kind of get them off the plane and get them into a hangar, and they're like, what the hell is going on? And it basically transpires that the plane's been missing for 5.5 years, and everybody on the plane has not aged a day. And for them, the flight took a normal, however long it takes to fly between the Bahamas and the US, I know, a few hours. But for everybody else, they've been gone for 5.5 years. Unlike Marvel, who doesn't address the blip at all, this is obviously addressing, well, what would happen if you disappeared for 5 years? So, partners have you've been declared dead. Partners have moved on. They've got new partners. They might have remarried. In the main core, one of the key families, like there's twins. There's a twin boy and girl. The girl went on the flight that got home okay, and her brother was on the 828 flight. So now his twin is now 5 years older than he is. and obviously that dynamic of how close twins are, but his sister's now like sort of 13 and he's still 8 or whatever it is. It addresses how that affects things like that. Obviously, relatives have died while they've been gone. So again, this sort of main family, the brother and sister on there, their mother died while they were missing. Her fiance's now engaged to somebody else. So you kind of got all these sort of family dynamics and issues happening. But then when they come back, they start hearing things and seeing things to like help people. And they basically get called the callings. And we don't know where these callings come from or why these people are seeing them. But bad things happen if they don't try and help these people. They try and do something with the callings. One of the lead characters is a doctor, or and she basically kind of looks into a way to stop the callings, and she comes up with like a sort of vaccine almost and tests it on herself. And initially it's fine, but then she starts getting ill, and basically it's driving her mad, not being able to have these callings. So, we don't know if it's, something supernatural, something spiritual. Are these sort of angelic or, godly callings? We don't know. We don't know if they're in a parallel universe. We have no idea. So I'm probably not describing it particularly greatly, but do check out seasons 1 to 3 on Sky. I think they're still on Netflix in the States, if you haven't had a chance to catch it. But I'm really excited. I really hope they nail the landing. Jeff Rake has always said he knows how it ends, unlike J.J. Abrams does. So I really hope he's telling the truth. And the thing is, but time will tell. Either it'll be very clear whether he did know how it ends and whether that idea was a good idea, or whether it's kind of like, hey, look, you've made this up in the last 6 months and it's clearly, you're not brought all the threads together and there's loads of loose ends and it's all just a bit of a nightmare. So at the moment, I'm giving Jeff the benefit of the doubt. My fingers are crossed tightly that we're going to get a great season 4. As I said, it's split into 2 parts. We're getting part 1 November this year. I assume part 2 will be early 2023, which obviously will conclude the series. So I'm keeping everything crossed. Otherwise, I'll be back on here next year, apologizing to everybody for getting you invested. And it was a really crappy ending, but I'm really hoping for a good one this time. Like I say, I love these shows. I'm a sucker for them. And 9 times out of 10, you end up getting burnt. But faith in Jeff Rake. Hopefully he will land it for me. Anywho, so that's it for this week. So yeah. So you've got Manifest coming up in November. I think, we've got Andor starting soon. Again, that was one I was quite up for watching until the showrunners and actors opened their mouths. But I will certainly watch the first. I don't know how many episodes we're going to get. We could drop, whether we 1, 2, or 3. But I'll certainly watch the first couple, give you my thoughts on Andor. I will persevere with She-Hulk. Just please give me a story that I can convey to anybody. But at least I do have House of the Dragon, which is good right now. And fingers crossed it will stay that way. So anyway, have a great week. Enjoy the shows. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.